Ready? Hello everyone, welcome back to the National Television Network live broadcast of the House of Parliament sitting for today, Tuesday, March 10th, 2020. I'm Primus Hutchinson. Members are now settling in for the after-lunch session, and they will resume debate on the motion. The motion before the House, brought forward by the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, economic growth, job creation, external affairs, and public service, that be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow the sum of $20 million from the Export-Import Bank of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for the purpose of financing the St. Jude Hospital Phase 2 construction project. And be it resolved also that the loan is payable in 20 years from the date of the first disbursement of the loan, inclusive of a 5-year grace period. The Speaker is about to make his entrance, led by the Sergeant at Arms.
Papers to be laid. Honorable Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs, and the Public Service.
Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers standing in my name. Statutory Instrument Number 161, Fiscal Incentives Sunfresh Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument Number 162 of 2019, Finance Administration Act, Resolution of Parliament authorizing the Minister of Finance to borrow by means of advances. Statutory Instrument 163 of 2019, Finance Administration Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital expenditure, OECS Regional Health Project. Statutory Instrument Number 164 of 2019, Value Added Tax, Resolution of Parliament to approve Draft Value Added Tax Amendment Schedules 1 and 3, Number 2, Order. Statutory Instrument Number 166 of 2019, Fiscal Incentives, WJ Engineering Services Incorporated Order. Statutory Instrument Number 167, Fiscal Incentives St. Louis Woodworking Limited Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument Number 170 of 2019, Fiscal Incentives, Fresh Start Construction Company Limited Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument Number 171 of 2019, Customs Duties, Amendment Schedule 4, Number 5 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 173 of 2019, Income Tax Exemption, Appointments, Judicial and Legal Services Commission, Number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 174 of 2019, Value Added Tax, Amendment Schedules 1 and 3, Number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 4 of 2020, Immigration, Visa, Exemption, Events, Company of St. Lucia, Inc., Order. Statutory Instrument Number 6 of 2020, Excise Tax, Amendment of Schedule 1, Number 1, Order. Statutory Instrument Number 7 of 2020, Aliens License Exemption Valor Rose, St. Lucia, Limited Order. St. Lucia Instrument Number 8 of 2020, Aliens Licensing Exemption Royal Crescentia, St. Lucia, Limited, Number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 9 of 2020, Legal Aid Appointment of the Board of St. Lucia Legal Aid Authority Order. Statutory Instrument Number 12 of 2020, Legal Profession Eligibility Taylor Rose, Lorraine Order. Statutory Instrument Number 14 of 2020, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, Number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 16 of 2020, Aliens Licensing Exemption Sagicor Life, Eastern Caribbean Inc. Order. Statutory Instrument Number 17 of 2020, Public Health Nuances Amendment Regulations. Statutory Instrument Number 18 of 2020, Public Health Mosquito Control Amendment Regulations. Statutory Instrument Number 19 of 2020, Public Health Communicable and Notifiable Diseases Amendment Regulations. Statutory Instrument Number 21 of 2020, Excise Amendment of Schedule 1, Number 3 Order.
Honorable Minister for Tourism, Information Broadcasting, Culture, and Creative Industries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to lay the following papers standing in my name. Mr. Speaker, Statutory Instrument Number 159 of 2019, Tourism Incentives. Mr. Speaker, Statutory Instrument Number 160 of 2019, Tourism Incentive, Cicera Management Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 165 of 2019, Tourism Stimulus and Investment, Primeco Corporation Order. Statutory Instrument Number 168 of 2019, Tourism Incentive, Spice of India Order. Statutory Instrument Number 169 of 2019, Tourism Stimulus and Investment, Paradise Breeze Order. Statutory Instrument Number 1 of 2020, Tourism Incentives, Udovic Art Studio Incorporated Order. Statutory Instrument Number 2 of 2020, Tourism Stimulus and Investment, Elsa Bed and Breakfast Order. Statutory Instrument Number 3 of 2020, Tourism Incentives, Prestige Suites Order. Statutory Instrument Number 15 of 2020, Tourism Stimulus and Investment, St. Joseph's Limited Order.
Honorable Minister for Commerce, Industry, Enterprise, Development, and Consumer Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers standing in my name. Statutory Instrument Number 5 of 2020, Price Control Amendment Number 1, Order. Statutory Instrument Number 10 of 2020, Standards Fees Amendment Regulations. Statutory Instrument Number 11 of 2020, Export St. Lucia, Appointment of the National Export Council Order. Statutory Instrument Number 13 of 2020, Price Control Amendment Number 2, Order. Statutory Instrument Number 20 of 2020, Price Control Amendment Number 3, Order.
Motions, Honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Whereas it is provided under Section 39(1) of the Finance Administration Act, Cap 1501, that the Minister for Finance may, by resolution of Parliament, borrow money from a bank or other financial institution for the capital expenditure of government. And whereas it is further provided that Section 42(1) of the Finance Administration Act, Cap 1501, that there shall be charged on and paid out of the consolidated fund debt charges for which the government is liable. And whereas the Minister of Finance considers it necessary to borrow the sum of US $20 million, the principal amount from the Export-Import Bank of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for the purpose of financing the St. Jude's Hospital Phase 2 construction project. And whereas the loan is repayable in 20 years from the date of the first disbursement of the loan and inclusive of 5-year grace period. And whereas the interest is payable at a rate of 6-month London Interbank offered rate plus 1.5 per annum. And whereas the loan amounts shall commence after the grace period of 5 years has been expired. And whereas the principal on the outstanding amount shall be repaid in 30 consecutive equal or as nearly equal as possible semi-annual installments. And whereas the terms and the conditions proposed by the Export-Import Bank of the Republic of China Taiwan are accepted, be it resolved that the Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow the sum of US $20 million from the Export-Import Bank of China Taiwan for the purpose of financing the St. Jude Hospital Phase 2 construction project. Be it further resolved that the loan is repayable in 20 years from the date of the first disbursement of the loan, inclusive of a 5-year grace period. The interest is payable at a rate of 6-month London Interbank offered rate plus 1.5 per annum. The loan payment shall commence after the grace period of 5 years has expired. The principal on the outstanding amount shall be repaid in 30 consecutive equal or as nearly equal as possible semi-annual installments, and the terms and the conditions proposed by the Export-Import Bank of the Republic of China Taiwan are accepted. Mr. Speaker, the request to borrow the sum of $20 million US from the Export-Import Bank of the Republic of China Taiwan. The resolution before Parliament is to seek such approval. Mr. Speaker, upon assuming office in June of 2016, the government undertook a review of the then ongoing St. Jude Hospital reconstruction project. On the basis of the findings of the technical audit completed in 2017, the project was suspended with a view to allowing an opportunity to determine the most appropriate approach for the completion and the operationalization of the hospital. The audit highlighted significant deficiencies in the planning and the execution of the project. Mr. Speaker, after carefully considering various options, the government decided through Cabinet Conclusion 612 of 2018 that the best approach was to proceed with the completion of the project on the existing site at Auger. Cabinet Conclusion 612 of 2018 also approved the engagement of a consultant to advise on the way forward for the facility. The consultant led a series of consultation with stakeholders which agreed on the St. Jude's Hospital reconstruction project. The objective of the project, Mr. Speaker, is to deliver a 90-bed facility that will cater for both inpatient and outpatient services. The project will involve, 1, the construction of a new wing to incorporate all the functions and services of the existing east and surgical wings. Integration. 2, integration through retrofitting of some of the existing buildings to achieve a fully functional hospital. And 3, revision of the internal layout of buildings to be integrated for both functional efficiency and compliance with minimum standards. The hospital will provide a total floor area of 13,232 square meters and comprise the physiotherapy building, the dialysis building, and the new wing. The new wing will consist of an interconnected 2-story structure that will feature the typical services of a modern healthcare facility in 5 blocks as follows. Block C, pharmacy, dental, endoscopy, accident and emergency, diagnostic imaging, maternity, staff terrace, neonatal intensive care unit, operating theater, and general access. Block D, ophthalmology, waiting area, primary care, children and adolescent consulting, triage, gynecology ward, and medical ward. Block E, accident and an emergency on-call accommodation, non-communicable diseases, social services, security office, minor surgery, and pediatric ward. And Block F, diagnostic imaging, clinical laboratory, waiting area, central sterile services department, surgical ward, and orthopedic ward. And Block G, which is the main reception. On the basis of approvals by the Development Control Authority, site preparation works commenced in February of 2019, and were completed in time to facilitate a sod-turning ceremony during the visit to St. Lucia by the President of Taiwan in July 17, 2019. These works were undertaken by Fresh Start Construction. In pursuit of a phased approach to the execution of works, a policy decision was taken to undertake as a first phase the structural frame of the new wing. This was done on the basis of architectural design approval with conditions from the DCA as a design consultant continued to work towards the submission of full designs. In keeping with a desire to utilize its international experience, a policy decision was taken to engage the Overseas Engineering and Construction Company Limited of Taiwan as the main contractor on the project. This decision is in keeping with the terms and the conditions of the draft loan agreement to be signed between the Government of St. Lucia and the Export-Import Bank of Republic of China. After a period of discussions and negotiations between the various parties, agreement was reached on the execution of the civil works for the project through the following contracts. Government of St. Lucia and the OECC as the main contractor for the construction of the structural frame. OECC and Fresh Start Construction as a subcontractor. As we speak, works are progressing on the structural frame, which is expected to be completed by May of 2020. Subsequent to that, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing services will be installed. Given that there have been delays in the delivery of the full costings of the design consultant firm, figure is not yet available for the total cost of the project. However, this figure is expected to be known this week. Government will be making that information available to this House as soon as it becomes available, and is committed to ensuring that the figure is not beyond what we should be spending of this critical national investment. Based on the aforementioned, the government needs an additional loan of $20 million to complete the St. Jude Hospital. All debts issued by the Government of St. Lucia become a charge on the consolidated funds. Given that this is a soft loan, which means it is a low interest rate with an extended maturity profile, its inclusion to the existing debt portfolio will not have a significant impact on the financing cost and risk. The loan will be issued under the following terms and conditions. $20 million, an interest rate, 6-month London interbank offered rate, which is LIBOR, plus 1.5%, 20 years semi-annual, which is $666,000 US, a grace period for 5 years. The project is under the supervision of the PMU unit, which provides the monitoring and the oversight needed, and support from the Department of Economic Development, Transport and Civil Aviation, the design consultant, and the contractor. There are many benefits to being derived from this project, the primary one being the improvement of health care, delivery within a safe and conducive environment in the South. The expected deliverable is fully functional modern health facility, capable of providing up to tertiary care services in St. Lucia.
Honorable members, the question is that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow the sum of US $20 million from the Export-Import Bank of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for the purpose of financing the St. Jude Hospital Phase 2 construction project, and be it further resolved that A, the loan is repayable in 20 years from the date of the first disbursement of the loan, inclusive of a 5-year grace period. B, the interest is payable at a rate of 6% London interbank offered rate plus 1.5% per annum. C, the loan payment shall commence after the grace period of 5 years has expired. D, the principal on the outstanding amount shall be repaid in 30 consecutive equal or as nearly equal as possible semi-annual installments. E, the terms and conditions proposed by the Export-Import Bank of the Republic of China, Taiwan are accepted. Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the situation at St. Jude Hospital, which continues to be housed in the National Stadium after almost 5 years, highlights the insensitivity of this administration to both the persons needing health services and the youth. The sick are being held in dilapidated conditions, while the young people are being denied access to sporting facilities. At present, St. Lucians are dying because of the poor physical conditions, lack of basic equipment, drugs, and other inefficiencies in the public health care system. And the only response the nation gets is excuses and more excuses. Mr. Speaker, you'd wonder if these are my words. They are not my words. They are from the manifesto of the United Workers' Party in the last general elections. I have left out two words. After almost 5 years of SLP rule, page 43 of the manifesto, and I've also left out the fact that this is taking place in the Prime Minister's constituency. I've left it out. But every word I've read comes from page 43 of the manifesto of the United Workers' Party, building a new St. Lucia. Mr. Speaker, both governments agree that the construction of St. Jude is a priority. The project started in 2010 under the United Workers' Party. In 2011, there was a change in direction. That necessitated a replanning exercise. Between when the hospital got burned in 2009 and 2010, the government decided that it would clear the site and repair the existing facility. In 2011, there was a change in direction and a replanning exercise began. But we must note that finance was not available. And you can't blame the government for that because nobody knew that there would have been a fire. Finance was not available, and the government decided that with grants and help and assistance from other countries that they would continue construction. Throughout the period of construction, Mr. Speaker, there was uncertainty with the finance. There was no loan, there was uncertainty. The government did not know where it was going because there was no money. There were challenges of mobilization and challenges of remobilization when the work stopped. What is clear, Mr. Speaker, is when the government changed in 2011, the then government continued work on St. Jude. We continued work on St. Jude, and there was no need for political retribution. We did not say that it started under one government, so we not continue. We continued work on St. Jude. I want to ask Mr. Speaker, what is the difference now, 4 years later, nearly 4 years later, in 2011 and 2016? What's the difference? The only difference is the existing buildings have got worse. The only difference is that the structures that were left there, they have remained closed, and the situation has deteriorated. That's the only difference. Mr. Speaker, it took this government nearly 4 years to realize, after they had committed, or after they decided to have an audit. I defy any member on this side to tell me there is anything in that audit that says that these buildings are not salvageable. There is nothing in the audit that will say that the buildings that exist cannot be used as a hospital. There is nothing. And I'm saying to you, Mr. Speaker, that this government is coming to this honorable house to borrow $20 million. And I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, how much money that has been spent on St. Jude. How much money has been spent on St. Jude. And I will show you that if it was not an act of political retribution, the money that was spent on St. Jude already could have been used to do exactly what they say they want to do, and could have been used to reposition the buildings that they say were not good after some of them did some measurements in their hands. They could have done the same thing 3.5 years ago, and the people of St. Lucia would not have suffered that much. The same thing would happen, Mr. Speaker. But let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, this government spent in the year 2016 to 2017. They came into government in 2016, June 2016. They spent $35 million in St. Jude. And you can find that in the estimates, page 486 of the estimates. Between 2017 and 2018, the government spent $19 million in St. Jude. You can find that in the estimates, page 504. Between 2018 and 2019, the government spent $15 million on St. Jude. You can find it in the estimates in page 523. Between 2019 and 2020, the government spent $25.9 million in St. Jude, and you find it in the estimates on page 593. These were capital expenditure, not recurrent, not to run it, capital expenditure. Now the government is borrowing another $54 million to build a new building after nearly 4 years, Mr. Speaker. Not forgetting they demolished 2 of the existing buildings. There's absolutely nothing that has come to this House, neither in the audit that they have commissioned, that said anything about demolishing any buildings. If you add it, Mr. Speaker, you'll find that, that since this government is in power, they have spent $59 million on St. Jude, plus the 54 that they are going to spend now, which is a total of $94.9 million on the St. Jude facility. And after 4 years, we still have not got a new hospital. But I will know what they'll tell you is, you all were there, you all did it too. Their audit report says that $118 million was spent on the existing building. The handover report says $98 million was spent. I give them the benefit of the doubt. Because, you know, you always have, I give them $20 million. What that means, Mr. Speaker, is that if you decide and you agree that $118 million was spent by the former United Workers' Party government and the Social Labour Party government, $180 million, although the handover report says it was 98. A handover report that they kept secret. That means that from 2016, this government has spent, Mr. Speaker, this government has spent, Mr. Speaker, both on the repair of the stadium and the $54 million that they want to say they want to build a new block, which the Prime Minister said. And the Prime Minister also said he has not got the cost yet. The Prime Minister said that he has not got the cost of what is happening there. We are coming to this House to ask taxpayers to pay a loan of $54 million, but the Honorable Minister of Finance says he has not finalized the cost. That means, Mr. Speaker, that this government would have spent on the St. Jude facility $148 million. 54, which they're going to borrow, and 94 that they spent from 2016. You mean to tell me, Mr. Speaker, this government could not have taken that same money and repair the buildings? Couldn't have taken the same money and do what they want to do now? Because since 2016, the Honorable Minister has been talking about a phased approach to engine opening. But, Mr. Speaker, you must look at the act of political retribution. In November, they took the police and they went to a warehouse somewhere in Grand Riviere. Police with guns and fatigues, saying that they've come to take materials belonging to St. Jude. Up to today, we've not been told where that material is, and the handover report that they kept secret, it says clearly, Mr. Speaker, that the that equipment and materials in storage on page 22. They knew very well that material and equipment were in storage. But just to create political drama and to believe that they can find, because the same minister said the director of public prosecutions is going to be involved. Threats. Up to today, we've not been told what has happened to that material, what was taken, and whether the government has paid the businessman any money for his rent, etc. These questions remain unspoken. But I'll get back to the loan, Mr. Speaker, because you see, Mr. Speaker, we believe in everything in this country is aimed at political retribution, to make them cry, just start to cry. That is the aim. The aim is the government has no right to, we have no right to speak since June the 6th. So every policy this government aims to overturn it, to attack us, and to pretend that we are the cause of the problems at St. Jude. Why couldn't the government do what they're doing now 3.5 years ago? Why? You in government, you have the authority, you have the power, do why it took you nearly 4 years. But there's a famous quote, Mr. Speaker, and listen to the quote. If I spend 5 years in this government and I'm not able to open St. Jude, then I should keep my mouth shut when anybody else speaks about St. Jude. But remember, Mr. Speaker, I stood here and I said to them, 4 years is not 40 years. I warned them. I said to them, be careful, time is flying. And they laughed at me. I was a joke because they believed that 4 years was 40 years. Now, Mr. Speaker, 4 years is in June. And St. Jude is still not open. So what do? You hurry and you demolish 2 buildings. You hurry and you appoint a contractor, no tender. Now, I'll tell you what they'll say. You all were there, you all do it too. Can he sign? Can he sign? You know why? The reason why, that's what mean for them. the reason why Kenny signed and the honorable member for Castries North signed is because the construction was being done on the basis when you get money, you sign a contract. But you had 4 years. You've been saying that for 4 years. And I'll tell you something, that you all signed more direct awards. You all signed more direct awards than the Honorable Dr. Kenny Anthony. You all signed more direct awards than Honorable Kenny. And if you did not sign more, so, you know why? Because they had 4 years. You mean tell me this government could not put on tender for everybody to tender, for everybody to see reconstruction works, mashing up of 2 buildings at St. Jude, tender, let contractors tender to demolish 2 buildings. You think they couldn't put for tender building of a new superstructure? No, nobody knows. Nobody knows. $54 million, nobody knows. Today, we are hearing that it's a firm from Taiwan. I want to know if it's a firm from Taiwan that demolished the 2 buildings. And I want to know where is the engineering and architectural decision that says that these 2 buildings ought to be demolished. But I'll tell you something further, Mr. Speaker. We also heard that the Prime Minister, by his own admission, said he does not know the cost of the construction. You have spent $94 million in 2016. You want to come to this house to borrow another $54 million, but you stand and you say you do not know the cost of construction of what's happening there. Mr. Speaker, who is supervising what's happening there? Who is supervising it? Who is supervising it? Who is supervising? I'm putting it to you that there's never any tender for the supervision of these buildings. And when you were preparing the direct award, to give to an individual, you advise that you can't give an individual such a large amount on direct award. And you had to give it to a firm. Because, very true, because you are paying, you chose somebody to supervise this massive construction because you were getting difficulty in getting it supervised otherwise. So you had to pay somebody extra to supervise what's happening there. And no tender. And you sit and you laugh because you're in control, you're powerful. You sit and you laugh.
Leader of the opposition, speak through.
You are spending as if this government as that money belongs to them. You understand? Now the 40 years that they thought they had is coming for you. So everything is going crazy because the 4 years is there. June is here. And if it's one thing that they cannot stop, is time. You can victimize, you can be vindictive, you can threaten, but you cannot stop time. So tomorrow is Wednesday. Regardless, and then this is the reality that they are faced with. Face it, that reality now. We are in a major hurry to compete St. Jude's. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask another question, Mr. Speaker. I want to ask another question. Mr. Speaker, can the government say that they have any approved plans for what's happening there? The minister in charge of St. Jude, he said that the approved plans for St. Jude were completed in May 2016. That's what he said. Are there any approved plans for what's happening there now? Are there any approved plans for the superstructure that's happening now? Are there any approved plans? I'm just asking a question. Do you have approved plans for what's happening there? But, Mr. Speaker, nothing makes sense for this government because you said plans were approved for and the rest of the structure that you haven't built. I'm talking about structure you're doing now. What you're doing is there now. In May 2016, Mr. Speaker, this minister said, all right, the plans for approval for St. Jude, agreed, was submitted in March 2016 to DCA. Have you was submitted in March 2016? But the point I'm making to you, what has happened now? What is happening now? Are the plans approved? Mr. Speaker, are the plans approved now? Do you have approved plans for what's happening now? Do you have approved plans for what's happening now? If there are approved plans for what's happening now, I'll welcome it. How did you choose the contractor if you do not know the price? So what's the contractor working on? You do not know the cost of construction. We have chosen a contractor. So how are you paying him? Plus. You see, the emphasis is on the plus. Why are you do not have a contractor. You do not have a contractor, but you have a contractor, but you don't have any costs. Mr. Speaker, these are the things that this government wants to push down St. Lucia's throat. Because the whole story is, let's do all we have to do because St. Lucians, we can make, the government is working. So give us 5 more years to complete the work that we started. 4 years. You spent $98 million on St. Jude. You have not completed it, but now you come with people and you promise the people that you would complete St. Jude. But Mr. Speaker, do you know that there are buildings at St. Jude that were built specifically for isolation and quarantine? In that structure there are buildings there that were built for isolation and quarantine. In that very structure, when we talk about quarantine in Rat Island. In that same structure, Mr. Speaker, there are buildings built for quarantine. In these 27 buildings that are there. Mr. Speaker, if this government did not want to act, and act act of political retribution to try to make people suffer because they believe that the South is soft and don't make people suffer. They would have done what they are professing to do now 3 years ago. They would have done it 4 years ago. But they've waited now, and sometimes you hear about 24-hour shift, then you hear about 48-hour shift, then you hear about all kinds of shifts, just because time, that element of time that they didn't think was flying, is flying now. So as I've said, the amount of sword-turning ceremonies you'll see between now and the end of this year are going to be out of this world. Projects. You see what's happening in Parliament now, a whole hour of projects, and you'll have all kinds of statements because time. That's the problem, Mr. Speaker, time. So everybody's out. Everybody, television, radio, time. Because they believed that they would have been in power forever. So all the surrogates are out. Everybody's out, writing, reading, exercising. Not like me though. But see, Mr. Speaker, the people of St. Lucia and the people of the South will never forgive you for St. Jude. They will never forgive you for how you made them suffer for the St. Jude Hospital. They'll never forgive you. And no matter what you try, the people will remember that you kept them, you stopped construction on the hospital when there was no reason for you to stop construction. You stopped construction, you allowed them to suffer, you spent $94 million, you spend another 54, and they still have no hospital. And what you're doing there, you say you do not know the cost of it. But Mr. Speaker, life and karma has a serious way. Karma. You see, you can say what you want. You can come and call the name of the Lord thy God in vain. But karma has a way of hitting you. And you don't even know when it hits you. God, those who profess to be these big Christians, when they go back at their homes and they sit and reflect and say to themselves, am I really what I say I am? But Mr. Speaker, I believe now that the crisis in health has now multiplied because of the coronavirus. And Mr. Speaker, it's a sober moment that we should all reflect on. We have serious challenges in health. The lives of the people are at stake, and our economic livelihood is also at stake, Mr. Speaker. We must be sensible in our approach, Mr. Speaker. I want, Mr. Speaker, to offer the government a little bit of advice. Although they have made it clear, the Prime Minister has made it clear that he doesn't listen to anything anybody says. We've lost our right to speak from June the 6th. He has made it clear. I want to advise the government, Mr. Speaker, to establish a virus hotline. And the same way that they found money to give Ojo Labs, I want to advise them to set up a fund to assist businesses and employees who are going to be impacted by this looming crisis. Because you know what's happening to the cruise lines. I understand that bookings in the hotels have dropped. Employees are going to lose their jobs. The same way that we could find money to give Ojo Labs, I want the government to consider establishing a fund to help these workers who are going to lose their jobs. I want to say to the government, Mr. Speaker, to defer the implementation of the new hotel accommodation tax. Defer it until the situation has settled and we know what's happening to our rivals. Because they come and they boast about the best tourist season ever. When we warn them, when we caution them that tourism revenue, and when we caution them that when you just take a simple multiplication and multiply airport departure tax by passengers and say, we have $1 billion. That doesn't work. There is sensitivity and there is responsiveness. You have to check on the sensitivity. What will happen if there's a movement? Because you cannot control arrivals. This virus has shown us that we cannot control arrivals, Mr. Speaker. So I want to tell this government to defer the implementation of the accommodation tax. And I also want to tell the government, although it might be falling on deaf ears, to reconsider that $600 million loan for the airport. I'm not going to say anything more on that, Mr. Speaker, for now. Just want to warn them that the calculations that they made, multiplying arrivals by departure tax, we will look at it, because that situation has shown that that is not as stable as they think, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I believe that this motion this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, is because of the lack of empathy of this government, because of the desire to commit political retribution, to make us pay, to make us cry. That is why this motion is here today. The situation at St. Jude could have been resolved a long time ago. They found $94 million to spend. $94 million they spent between 2016 and 2019. If they had just continued to work at the existing site, St. Lucian's would be, and the people of the South would have been enjoying a brand new hospital at this point in time. It's an inefficient use of resources, it's misguided priorities, Mr. Speaker, and it's too much of a need for vengeance. Vengeance. That's why we are here today. The only people that are going to suffer are the people of St. Lucia and the people of the South, Mr. Speaker. Whereas I support improved health care, I support the fact that St. Lucia, we need a new facility. I'm saying because of the government's inefficiency and their failure to continue construction, to continue work at the St. Jude site, we are in this position today. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Swazel, Saltibus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the motion by the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, to borrow $20 million US dollars to assist with construction of the St. Jude's reconstruction project. Mr. Speaker, as a resident of Choiseul, Saltibus, and a parliamentary rep, I speak on behalf of all the residents as it relates to the importance of St. Jude's being completed. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I think I speak on behalf of all of St. Lucia in that we would like to see St. Jude's completed. Mr. Speaker, we must reflect as we speak on St. Jude's and reflect on some of the words from the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Speaker. And while it is something that I'm not always in favor of, Mr. Speaker, but we must be reminded of our history. We must be reminded of what happened in the past as far as St. Jude's is concerned. So I will go there for a short while, Mr. Speaker, and remind this Honorable House, Mr. Speaker, through you, that St. Jude's was destroyed sometime the latter part of 2009. At the time, the Honorable Stephenson King was the Prime Minister, and we all can remember the grief shed by the nation. Mr. Speaker, I remember the drive to reconstruct, to rehabilitate the structures. I remember the challenges in terms of identifying the place to relocate, and all of the other challenges that came with the reconstruction of the St. Jude site. I also remember, Mr. Speaker, that after almost 1 year of trying to complete the renovation of a meeting held on the St. Jude site by members opposite, and the demand that was, or rather the order that was given to the then Prime Minister to finish St. Jude's. Finish St. Jude's. The leader opposite, the leader of the opposition speaks to the people will not forgive this government. The people did not forgive you. That is why you lost the election in 2016. And the reason for that, the reason for that, Mr. Speaker, is because you, opposite, promised the people. In fact, you gave the people expectation, because after 1 year, you figured we should have completed the structure, gave the people expectation. You came in, and year after year after year after year, continuous promises to complete St. Jude's, and it never happened. And Mr. Speaker, no, I welcome the comments. You speak to the priority. Priority, I welcome that, doctor. As a matter of fact, there are 2 doctors. I welcome both of them. Mr. Speaker, the member opposite, the leader opposite speaks to the availability. Mr. Speaker, can I get some order? The leader opposition speaks to no financing being made available because we did not know there was a fire. And he spoke to both the former government and then his government. So he figured, you know, we cannot blame anybody because we did not know there was a fire. But Mr. Speaker, I want to and he keeps quoting the reconstruction handover report. He said that was kept a secret. But it's a document of the House, I believe.
Yes, it is.
But it is? Okay. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to quote page 19 in that document. And we speak about priority. We speak about making St. Jude's, you know, a number 1 project for the people of St. Lucia. And Mr. Speaker, I quote, it says, during the period 2012 to 2015, the availability of funding dictated the pace of works on the ground. Despite the request by the project management unit for adequate financial resources to progress work on that site, the funds made available were inadequate, and work on the site was restricted to approve funds for the respective financial year due to budgetary constraints. Priority? Priority? From 2012 to 2015, you have a project management asking you for funds. I go further, Mr. Speaker. I go further, page 20. Although the funding for St. Jude's was approved by the donor, and a subsequent decision was taken to divert the resources to the new National Hospital. Priority, St. Jude's? Priority, St. Jude's? You see, Mr. Speaker, I make mention of these. Yeah, we will finish it. And we will give you a brand new hospital.
That's right. Stay down there.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite spoke to expenditure. Expenditure over a number of years as it relates to St. Jude's, related to St. Jude's. The member opposite should know better than everybody else by virtue of his qualifications that estimates does not mean expenditure. Estimates does not mean expenditure, Mr. Speaker. As a matter of fact, quite a bit of these figures were to do what? Take off previous expenses while you were in government. While you were in government. Okay? And two, Mr. Speaker, was to take care of expenses at the stadium. Okay? So, Mr. Speaker, when the member opposite speaks, he needs to be more open and more truthful on the issue. And Mr. Speaker, when you come into a position where you're responsible for something, if you're not happy with what you see on the ground, Mr. Speaker, you have to take stock. You have to stop and take stock, and this is what we did. We could not understand how a project was running for 5 years, not complete. There was a mention in the budget by the Honorable Leader of Government at the time that it would cost $60 million to build St. Jude's. At the point in time of coming over, we were almost $120 million in expense. No building. We had to stop and take stock, Mr. Speaker. That is what a responsible government does. Stop and take stock. And Mr. Speaker, you know what strengthens this point? The honourable member says that in these 4 years, the existing buildings have gotten worse. The existing buildings have gotten worse. You know why, Mr. Speaker? You know why, Mr. Speaker? We have seen the pictures. We have seen them with our eyes. Steel beams inadequately placed. Okay? The height of the roof, the size of corridors. Mr. Speaker, can you imagine putting the patients and staff into this thing, and halfway in between now, you have to come back and do construction while the people are there, Mr. Speaker? Can you imagine that psychological frustration? Mr. Speaker, this government went very well in terms of assessing what was happening there and what we had to do. At this point in time, Mr. Speaker, we have identified what needs to be done. We will be giving the people of the South a state-of-the-art hospital, and rest assured, Mr. Speaker, we will be forgiven. I thank you.
Honourable Member for Vifort North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, thank you for allowing me, Mr. Speaker, to speak on the motion which relates to the government's intention to borrow $20 million for the reconstruction of the St. Jude Hospital Phase 2. First of all, Mr. Speaker, since the Prime Minister indicated that he does not have the true cost of the project, it may be good through you, Mr. Speaker, for him to tell us whether there is a Phase 3 and a Phase 4 or a Phase 5. Mr. Speaker, I sat there listening to the first few jabs in this debate, and I'm very sad, Mr. Speaker. I'm not one to shed tears at every occasion as our Prime Minister does, but Mr. Speaker, I think it's a moment for us to openly discuss the facts, look at the situation that our people are in, and as opposition, we are calling on the government to account. But the government, Mr. Speaker, seems to want to continue this St. Jude debate in a hotly debated political football geared towards elections. I'm not in that mood, honestly, Mr. Speaker, because I know of a gentleman who lives at Bellevue. I know of so many people who have gone to the St. Jude Hospital recently, in the last 2 months, and who could not find a bed. They had to be in the corridors. I know of people who have had their prescriptions and they have had to go to the town of Beaufort or elsewhere to purchase critical supplies. Mr. Speaker, I know of so many of my constituents from Beaufort North who go to the St. Jude Hospital at the stadium and explain to me when I go out there to visit them the kinds of conditions in which they lie on the beds. I also remember, Mr. Speaker, the 3 individuals who died in the St. Jude Hospital fire were all from the constituency of Beaufort North. And so for me, Mr. Speaker, this debate is not about when elections will be called and whether we will finish the hospital before elections. And like the member for Castries South East once said on a program, that for him the St. Jude Hospital is a political issue. This for me is not about that kind of debate. It's about what kind of deflection this government has been doing over the years to do what they really wanted with the St. Jude Hospital. And during that time, causing the people to suffer deliberately, Mr. Speaker. That is where I'm going. So all these jabs about we'll finish it before elections and therefore the people will not forgive, we will not blame us and we will be forgiven. You see, it's a game. It's a game. So we were punished and you will not be punished. So the St. Jude thing is a game for you. Mr. Speaker. It's not about the many people who have died based on reports from doctors because of conditions at St. Jude. That is not what you hear from them. Mr. Speaker, that is not what you are hearing from them. This whole St. Jude debate for them is about politics. That's what it's about. But for me, it's about the gentleman who stayed many days in the hallway at the St. Jude Hospital. And it's about this government's lack of urgency where this matter is concerned. And you will say, oh, we didn't finish the hospital. There are many things I can tell you the United Workers' Party administration didn't finish. They too did not finish the Owen King EU Hospital. They stayed 5 years and the hospital was not finished when they left government. So I'm not here to equate who didn't finish hospital and who finished hospital. I am not in that game. Who finished hospital, who didn't finish hospital? You did not finish the Owen King EU Hospital. You are a minister, through you, Mr. Speaker, and you didn't finish it. You didn't hear this when we were in government, we harping on, you didn't finish Owen King EU Hospital. You stayed 5 years and you didn't finish it. So this thing is not about finishing hospital for elections, because this is what they are about, Mr. Speaker. The only thing they are jumpy about is when they are ready to have horse races. That's the only urgency that they know, Mr. Speaker. They put everything in place. They patch holes on part of the road going to Grace in my constituency because they have horse races. They do it. They move with haste because they have horse races. But they don't move with haste with St. Jude Hospital. And yes, you can say that we did not finish the hospital. That's a fact. But while we were before we entered government, Mr. Speaker, yes, we campaigned. We had political meetings. They say we had a meeting the other side. Yes. But when we entered government, we did not sit down there jumping at their throats about not finishing the hospital. We worked day in, day out, month in, month out, with a sense of urgency. You can blame us for not finishing, with a sense of urgency to ensure that our focus was on finishing the hospital. We didn't finish. We didn't finish. But our urgency was to ensure that health care. That was the urgency. Mr. Speaker, for me, this debate is about how this government deliberately deflected the minds and the conscience of the people of St. Lucia about St. Jude and healthcare to achieve the real purpose. And I will go through a chronology, Mr. Speaker, to show you on this St. Jude loan matter, the 20 million US dollars, the 54 million US dollars, the real intention of the government. And many times we have come to this house and we have laid bare the raison d'etre of this government. When they come and tell you, the Prime Minister in a calm voice tells you about, oh, it's a loan to finish the hospital, because that's not the real issue, Mr. Speaker. You have to dig deep to find out what the real issues are. And whether, and they know that what they're doing fits the script, their script, Mr. Speaker. This government, Mr. Speaker, as we all know, came into office on June 2016. It's almost 4 years, as the Member of Parliament and our leader said. In June, it will be 4 years. And the focus, as I said before, was not on completing the hospital, although they said many times, Mr. Speaker, that they would complete the hospital. They continue to dance a party with their friends and place hospitals and healthcare on the back burner, Mr. Speaker. C'est pas tes choix pour yo finir l'hôpital là, Mr. Speaker, avec santé Saint-Lucie. C'est pas ça qui est plus important dans le gouvernement. Tout ça nous ouais comme tuer. C'est pas santé avec l'hôpital Saint-Jude ou bien OK EU qui est plus important ba yo. C'est pas Saint-Jude tout seul. Jodi nous ka parler 54 millions de dollars pour Saint-Jude. Mais rôle affaires santé, c'est pas ça qui est plus important ba yo. Moi ça dit Mr. Speaker qui yo ka fait plus démarche. Les l'année coup cheval ka vini pour un chimé sorti ko fay ba glace aller bon séjour qui ka monter angoisse. Yo ka fait plus démarche pour faire toute bagaille belle, passer yo ka fait démarche pour ranger ça fait l'hôpital ex santé en cette lycée. There was a time, Mr. Speaker, and the Member of Parliament for Castries he said it, when efforts with the help of law enforcement, of the direction, they directed law enforcement to go to the home of private people, as the leader said. And they were hung-ho on investigations, Mr. Speaker, relating to the St. Jude Hospital. Over $800,000 spent for an investigation. And all the time, Mr. Speaker, buildings being allowed to break down. And that is not what I'm focused on. The question, the essential question for me is why? Why would a government not want to focus on completing a hospital? Now, if you say the hospital was not good, if you say St. Jude was not good, your architects, your engineers told it was not good, you wait almost 4 years. That says to us, Mr. Speaker, that was not and still is not the priority. You wait 4 years, rats, all kinds of things in the building, and you still want to blame us. But you did not wait 4 years to give away all our lands to DSH principals. You didn't wait 4 years to do all the investigations, all of the environmental impact assessments. You didn't wait 4 years. You did it, bam, immediately. And that's what I'm talking about. Why? So I'm not here TMAing about who finished this and who finished that. The people of Grace and Bellevue are tired of this TMA. You are voted into government. You wait 4 years to come and tell them you need 20 million US dollars more. And you have TMA about who pas fini, nous pas fini, who fini, me fini. And not about this, Mr. Speaker. It didn't matter, Mr. Speaker. It didn't matter that at services. And even though the buildings were not completed, people were crying out for an improvement of services at St. Jude Hospital. People are going, they can't get medicines. So you needed an audit to ensure that there are medicines at the hospital. You needed a technical audit to ensure that at least you can improve the conditions at the place. You needed a big technical audit. Mr. Speaker, all of the actions were tantamount to misdirection, bluff, changing the goalposts. They stopped work on July 6, 2016. By August 18th of 2016, Mr. Speaker, the Minister for Health, the Senator, Senator Mary Isaac, Mr. Speaker, said we're going to have St. Jude by October 2016. And the hospital is on schedule to open in 2016. And now the plot began. It's an interesting story, Mr. Speaker. So the minister comes and says we're going to finish what we had to do, and by October 2016, everything is okay. But the plot begins. A plot. By September 1st, the Minister for Economic Affairs jumps out and says, no DCA approval. We need an $800,000 audit. By the 19th of September, the PM comes out and says, the hospital is not even close to completing. Remember, the minister said that we're going to end by October 2016, you know. But by the 19th of September, the Prime Minister said, no, it's not even close to being completed. On the 22nd, the Voice newspaper, Mr. Speaker, puts the audit cost at $920,000. So the plot begins. And I will show you why this government is all about misdirection. And by October of 2016, the Minister for Economic Affairs speaks about litigation, possible litigation in the St. Jude matter. And they descended on people's property, Mr. Speaker. By January of 2017, the minister again, she changes her tune now. So everything could have been finished in October 2016. But by January 2017, I assume she got the memo, finally. So she changes her tune. People in charge did a terrible job and ought to be called to task. This is the same person who in October said the last year said it's going to open by October. So I'm telling you, it's a lot of deflection. We are not talking here about a government that gave different dates, you know. They accuse us of giving several opening dates, yes. But this is different to a government with open contradictions among their members. The Prime Minister says one thing, the Minister says one thing. At least when we were in government, the fault you could have given us was that we gave different opening dates. But we were never off track to working to complete. But not them. They're completing one time, then another time it's something else. Then the whole scope of the project changes. Then the whole project changes. A government of deflection, Mr. Speaker. And by April 10th of 2017, the Minister for Economic Development pronounces loudly that there's going to be a phased approach to the opening of St. Jude. So one time the people didn't do any good job. Another time it will open in October. And now it will open in a phased way. So you see the deflection. So I'm not debating again about who opened and who don't open. I'm talking about the deliberate deceit and deflection of this government, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and in all of that, the government knows what they want to know. In all of that, they went to this big ceremony on August 9th, 2017, for the handing over of the morgue. I mean, if you know, Mr. Speaker, that you don't want to do any St. Jude Hospital, you go on parade, people in their suits and everything. I was there. But by September 20th, 2017, the Minister for Economic Affairs calls into a radio program and says, people will be held accountable. So the plot thickens. Because, Mr. Speaker, in my opinion, this 20 million US dollars that we are talking about today, the 54 million EC dollars, is part of a plot of deflection to do exactly what they really want to do with St. Jude. In 2018, by February, Mr. Speaker, they have this advanced stage of design. So by one time, the hospital will open in phases, but by February of 2018, they have designs. We are at an advanced stage with designs for St. Jude Hospital, and suggestions that a new hospital will be open next to the brewery, will be constructed next to the Heineken brewery. So you see the deflection. Is the character of the government I'm speaking to where this St. Jude $54 million loan is concerned. And they also said on February 7th, 2018, that they're speaking to Health City, Apollo Health, and other institutions. So by February of 2018, nothing about hospital opening in phases, nothing about plans. They're already speaking to other health concerns, Health City, Apollo Health, and institutions. And by April 18th, interestingly, the same minister who said the hospital will open, she has come full circle now to say that a new hospital next to St. Jude will be built, and the St. Jude structure will be transformed into a medical school. And that's the day when infamously she called our hospital that thing. That's the Minister for Health on April 18th. So you can see the plot, Mr. Speaker. It's like a Cambridge Analytica plot. Begin to fashion their minds. So you call the hospital that thing. So people will begin to think that the hospital is so bad that it's a thing. Minister kuye l'hopital an bagay. Mr. Speaker, how disrespectful. That thing. So they are building a case for what they really want to do with the hospital. So it's not about who finish and who ain't finish.
They're building a box here at the
Mr.
hospital.
Speaker, on the 27th of April, 2018, in speaking about healthcare, the Prime Minister goes on to describe the concerns of the Labour Party as terrorism. He says this level of terrorism that's taking place in this country is to suggest that our government needs to be limited with the option that it has. He continues, the Labour Party lost its ability to determine that direction on June 6. That's the Prime Minister. We lost our ability on June 6. It's interesting that today they are calling for all hands to be on board because we have a hurricane coming. But I'll come to that, Mr. Speaker. So the $54 million is part of this scheme. By July 4th, Mr. Speaker, 2018, they are announcing a decision to build a new wing. And the Minister for Economic Affairs said at the time, on that date, that before 2018 ends, the construction should begin, before 2018 ends. On October 5th, 2018, after 2 years and 3 months, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister announced that a university is being considered for St. Jude. So, there ends chapter 4 of the plot. So from July 6, 2016 to October 5th, 2018, Mr. Speaker, a plot was being developed. They knew full well. Yoteza sav, Mr. Speaker, ki yo pavle mette St. Jude koye, kosa yo tourne society a, kwene tet moun, ek 5 octobre, l'année 5 octobre, l'année 2018, yo di jan set lisi, yo kay mette an university à l'hôpital St. Jude. So, Mr. Speaker, if that's what you wanted to do, just say so. Just say so. This is different to what we did as a government. You can blame us for not completing, but our intentions were always pure and clear. That is the character of this government, Mr. Speaker. The intentions are not clear. The Prime Minister tells you one thing about St. Jude's and about all other things, but tells you something else, but does something else. The intentions are not clear, Mr. Speaker. January 2019, they commence clearing and so on with a timeline of 2021. So, Mr. Speaker, the $54 million, I am not looking at it in isolation. This $54 million is part of a global plot by the government to give our St. Jude asset to some private company, some hospital, some medical school, while they are constructing what they say is a new wing for St. Jude Hospital. And if a new wing could have been constructed, it took 4 years. And I don't doubt, people doubt that people say they're not going to finish it, and there's a big debate about whether they'll finish it or not. That's not my debate. You can finish anything in any time. The Chinese built a major hospital within a couple days. You can finish anything in any time. But what is happening is this. The essence of the argument is this. You allowed people to suffer deliberately for 4 years, even though you finish hospital and put beds in it as you want. You can finish a box and put sheetrock in it and put all kinds of electrical in it in 2 nights. So this thing about, oh, if we finish it, then we're good. No. It is what we get in, Mr. Speaker. What we are getting, Mr. Speaker. So they're rushing to finish. Oh, we can finish it. So it's a tennis match about who finished hospital, who don't finish it. While the people are suffering, people who have died, families who have suffered, because this government has this plot. This plot to give the hospital to a private medical school while the people are suffering. That's what it is. That's what it is. And it's good to laugh. It's good to laugh because maybe, Mr. Speaker, they've never had relatives who suffered at the St. Jude Hospital. I'm going there. So, in something like that, they laugh. Because maybe they have not had relatives who have died because of the conditions at St. Jude. So that's why they're laughing today. They're laughing. They're laughing, Mr. Speaker. And I've said before, this ain't no joking matter. So while we can debate and say this government didn't finish it, they laugh at something like that. Because for 3.5 years, 3.5 years, Mr. Speaker, they've not finished it. Mr. Speaker, the $54 million which has been sought for the St. Jude reconstruction phase 2 is happening this way, Mr. Speaker, because of the lack of the lack of leadership, the lack of vision, and the lack of priority by this Prime Minister and this government. That's why it is happening now. Look at what's happening with the coronavirus, Mr. Speaker. And the St. Jude Hospital, even with $54 million, if this money had been spent before, would have been possibly physically and structurally ready to deal with those kinds of issues. It's unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, that we have situations like we had the Ebola in 2014. We had around the world SARS and many other outbreaks of disease that require countries to have a very solid health infrastructure. So the loan which is being sought, the $20 million US, Mr. Speaker, could have done this country well with the oncoming, hopefully we never have it, but with the oncoming emergency that we have. I hear people speaking about a hurricane. It's like we have to prepare as if it's a hurricane. And you can't wait for when the meteorologists announce that the hurricane is in Barbados or approaching from Martinique side to begin to decide you're going to build strong buildings for the hurricane. Since December, the WHO sounded the alarm, Mr. Speaker. We held a press conference on February the 5th, sounding the alarm. You know what they said? We are prophets of doom. We try to create panic in St. Lucia. Since February 5th. And today you're talking about $54 million to improve the structure that could have done before, that could have happened before. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope everything is in place. The preparation, just like Ebola. And the Minister for Health today is very fortunate because I hope she remembers all of her statements in 2014 when she was in another place at another time during the Ebola crisis. The way she spoke today, Mr. Speaker, is not what she said, and I'm not going to go through what she said in 2014. I have all of them quoted here.
You should.
On radio in Trinidad, and all of that, the dates and everything. How customs officers will not man the ports, and all those kinds of things, because it was a political time. I was happy to hear her today. Mr. Speaker, this $54 million, and all of the problems we have had at St. Jude, and the government side trying to play politics, continue to play politics with why people are suffering. The member for Cash Resist started it. $10 million for Ojo Labs. The priority again. There was an urgency for this one, not an urgency to build the wing that they said was required. $24 million for a hotel, Mr. Speaker. Another $10 million for CHTTI. $32,400,000 in December of 2018 for a national sports infrastructure strategy and action plan. Over $600 million potentially, Mr. Speaker, for the airport. But the urgency and the priority was not there for St. Jude. It was because the plot was devised. People, it did not matter if people suffered. It did not matter the people who were in the alleyways at St. Jude. The doctors and the nurses, that's not what matters. It's politics time. So I can imagine some of the members opposite. You all this, you all that. And since it's a period of Lent, Mr. Speaker, I urge the member for Castres South East to please tell us about the Golden Cross. Because he did say in the parliament that there's a Golden Cross. How many carat gold of cross which is for St. Jude, and he's searching for it. So it's a Lenten period, and maybe the member can tell us about the Golden Cross, because they had police and law enforcement to go to get all of this. So, Mr. Speaker, my concern is not about the politics. And they have said that the people of the South will punish us again. Only time will tell. They have done worse things than that, Mr. Speaker, about the South, trying to do things in the South deliberately to punish us, as they say. It has not worked before, and I can guarantee them it will not work again. I can guarantee them. They have made us suffer too much, Mr. Speaker. Too much. So I say to you, Mr. Speaker, this money is a ploy. We want the hospital for the people, an impending crisis. Why don't they go fix the east wing? The east wing of the hospital can be fixed within weeks. Instead of trying to organize ferries to Rat Island and disturb the geckos and the trees in their peace. So, Mr. Speaker, this government is all about deflection. This government is all about trying to change people's perception of their priorities. Their priorities are horse racing. Their priorities are ensuring that our local assets go to foreigners. Their priorities are using NIC funds, the funds which will secure the future of our people, to give to foreign millionaires. These are the priorities, not St. Jude Hospital. So what they're doing is about elections and about giving the real St. Jude Hospital to a medical school, a private concern, to take the assets of St. Lucia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, The question is that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance Honorable Member for Soufrière Fonseca. A little quicker to the mic.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the motion presented by the Honorable Prime Minister in requesting authorization from Parliament to borrow US $20 million from the Export-Import Bank of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for the purpose of the reconstruction of the St. Jude's Hospital project, Phase 2. And I do so, Mr. Speaker, as the proud representative of the wonderful people of Soufrière Fonseca, a people, Mr. Speaker, who are direct beneficiaries of the many services offered at this national institution of ours. Mr. Speaker, it is my firm belief, and that of the members on this side of the House, that the provision of health care to the citizens of a country is not a privilege, but a fundamental human right. We also believe, Mr. Speaker, that health care must be affordable and of quality. And that, Mr. Speaker, ethnicity, religion, gender, education, economic status, and political affiliation should never determine your access to health care. And it is in this belief, Mr. Speaker, that the Honorable Prime Minister and members on this side of the House have been relentlessly committed to completing the construction and operationalization of St. Jude's Hospital in the south of the island. So, Mr. Speaker, we as a government, we will never be hindered or deterred by the preachers of gloom and doom who are seated on the opposite side of the House. Preachers. I never said preachers. Preachers of doom and gloom. That's what I said. Preachers of doom and gloom. Seated on the other side of the House in making completion of this facility a reality, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, whilst we had to review, plan, and implement the reconstruction of this health facility, we have been dedicated to improving and expanding the primary healthcare services of this country. A service, Mr. Speaker, which was left in disarray by the members opposite. Mr. Speaker, we understand the importance of primary healthcare services to a country, to its citizens. We know primary healthcare, Mr. Speaker, is easily accessible and community-based. It is in the backyard of the people. And Mr. Speaker, we also understand that primary healthcare includes health promotion, education, promotion of healthy lifestyles, diagnosis and treatment of acute and chronic illnesses. And we know, Mr. Speaker, if we also concentrate on primary healthcare services, it is going to help augment some of the services offered at the general hospitals. It is going to relieve some of the pressures that St. Jude's and OKEU Victoria are going to be faced with, Mr. Speaker. And as a government, Mr. Speaker, for the past 3.5 years, we have made strides in our primary healthcare services. We have quite a few achievements, Mr. Speaker, that we, as a government on this side of the House, can boast about. And permit me, Mr. Speaker, to outline some of the achievements of primary healthcare services offered in St. Lucia under the stewardship of our Honorable Prime Minister and members on this side of the House. Mr. Speaker, 1, Department of Health and Wellness has partnered with the Stacky Herring Foundation to provide hearing aids to St. Lucians. Over 1,000 St. Lucians have been filled with hearing aids over a period of 2 missions to St. Lucia, with aftercare support in Viewfort Wellness Center, Soufriere Hospital, and Castries Wellness Center. Mr. Speaker, vaccination coverage for all vaccines among children on the 1 year maintained at 95% and an increase in coverage of 80%. I know among children at 4 to 5 years at school entry, following a successful vaccination drive held in July to September 2019. Achievements. Dental service was expanded in primary care in Ancillary Wellness Center. Given the capacity constraints of dental in the public sector, this was a welcome addition to the dental services being offered in primary care in Ancillary. Dental services, Mr. Speaker, will also be reinstated in Dennery and Soufriere. Smart Hospital Initiative project, Mr. Speaker, funded by the United Kingdom's Department for International Development, DFID, and implemented through PAHO, focused on improving health facilities resilience, strengthening structural and operational aspects, providing green technologies. Mr. Speaker, funds were secured under the World Bank Disaster Vulnerability Project, being implemented by the National Project Coordinating Unit to build Dennery Polyclinic and Meekwood Wellness Center. Dennery Polyclinic has started, but had to stop due to design issues, which have been corrected and is expected to resume very soon. Design issues by them. And I'm certainly sure the member of Castries Southeast can elaborate more. A contract has been awarded, Mr. Speaker, for the Meekwood Wellness Center. Funding, Mr. Speaker, was secured for the construction of new wellness center for Ancillary on the National Insurance Property Development and Management Company Bolt Agreement.
Tell them.
And work is a contract has been awarded, and I know work is expected to commence very soon. Soufriere Hospital, Mr. Speaker, was affected by 2 fires in 2017. And under this administration, we were able to renovate, rehabilitate, and Soufriere Hospital is functioning. In the next few weeks, Mr. Speaker, in the next few weeks, we are going to be commissioning a fully operational laboratory and X-ray unit at the Soufriere Hospital. Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, these are some of the achievements in primary healthcare services to this nation that we have achieved under this administration in 3.5 years. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister and his team understands where we need to take healthcare in this country. We have a plan, we have a vision, and we know what we have to do for healthcare in this country. Unlike the members opposite, Mr. Speaker, the members who spent over $100,000 to commission a hospital but never opened it. This government, we are assuring St. Lucians that we are going to fully transition Victoria Hospital into OKEU, Mr. Speaker. Unlike the members opposite, Mr. Speaker, whom you heard earlier spent almost $118 million on St. Jude's in 4.5 years and never completed it. We are going to complete St. Jude's Hospital and give the people of the South a state-of-the-art, world-class facility where they are going to receive quality and affordable health care, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, you heard almost $118 million, but they were also informed, they were also written to, that in March they were written to, that St. Jude's, March 2016, March 30th of 2016, that St. Jude's would have cost an estimated $178.7 million. 107 estimated. Now you know why they wrote estimated, Mr. Speaker? To them, because everybody knows they are notorious for cost overrun. So that estimated would have ballooned to almost $200 million, Mr. Speaker. Okay? So, $178.7 million. But we know where that would end, Mr. Speaker.
That's the most ignorant question ever.
Mr. Speaker, I can understand. Mr. Speaker, I can understand if the members opposite were maybe from the LPM or the other side, the one. I would have taken the opportunity to listen there this afternoon and try to understand the arguments and think things through. But, Mr. Speaker, these are the members who were on this side of the House 3.5 years ago. They had the opportunity 3.5 years ago to complete St. Jude's, and the member from Choiseul said it.
Never did.
1 year after the fire, they were on the steps of the hospital protesting. 4.5 years, they couldn't get the job done. 3.5 years, they are still protesting. But rest assured, St. Jude's will be completed. Members opposite. And Mr. Speaker,
Honorable
he
members.
wasn't there. He wasn't there. He wasn't there. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members. Continue, member for Sufra.
Mr. Speaker, not only the members opposite were here 3.5 years ago. Remember, they have been in governance for the past 15 years. 3 terms. 3 terms. And they want to come and lecture this government on St. Jude's and healthcare. 3 terms, Mr. Speaker. And not only that, but their leader, their prime minister at that time, was also Minister of Finance and member for Beaufort South.
It's parliamentary.
So what is the argument? We have only been there for 3.5 years. We had to review, we had to plan and implement, and we are going to complete the St. Jude's Hospital for the people of the South, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, my point is very simple. The members opposite, they have been tried, they have been tested, they have failed the exam, and they have no footing to talk about healthcare or St. Jude's in this honorable house, Mr. Speaker. No footing to stand on to talk about healthcare or St. Jude's. Because we are going to get the job done, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, as if the destruction of the healthcare system for the past 3 terms was not enough, you have the member for Castries East who goes live on television and social media making dangerous statements. Dangerous statements. He wasn't drunk. I don't know what you had, but you had something. When the world population is on edge at this time, you're making such reckless and careless statements about St. Lucia's state of readiness and preparedness for coronavirus. When a deputy, one of your deputies, gave glowing remarks as to the state of readiness of this country for coronavirus, you still went and make such careless statements. Why? 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 Just for cheap politics, Mr. Speaker, to create fear, to create panic, to create confusion and division in the country. You know the government is doing all that it can. Everything has been put in place to deal with this virus. But yet still, you're going out and making careless and reckless statements. Honorable member.
Honorable members. Honorable members.
I don't know who does advise you. I know it is not the member for General Off.
Member for Sufra.
Because he says something different.
Member for Sufra. Speak through the chair, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was saying I do not know who is advising the member from Castries East. But I think he needs to reconsider his team of advisors and be careful with his statements. Because a true leader, Mr. Speaker, would never make such statements. Never make such statements. It has to be, Mr. Speaker, a follower of the leader of the opposition to make such reckless statements. And Mr. Speaker, I do not know which leader of the two Souths he is following, but I know one of them in here, Mr. Speaker. I may not know him that well. Members on this side, maybe the member from Babuno, or the member from Castro Southeast, and even better, my dear colleague friend from Castro Central knows that member better than I do, than we do, and we know probably, Mr. Speaker, that the follower of the leader should be very careful, because that particular leader, we know when his level of tolerance for him is getting to a point where maybe some decisions will have to be made. But it's a matter of time, Mr. Speaker, for us to see. But Mr. Speaker, statements like this only comes from desperate, insecure, fearful, and extremely weak leaders in the name of politics. But the people of St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker, they're smarter than that. And the people of St. Lucia know that he's only causing embarrassment to himself and to the Labour Party. Mr. Speaker, I have a simple message to the members opposite and to the member from Castries East, from the people of Soufrière Fonseca, that no matter what reckless, careless statements you make, you shall only find comfort in the seat where you are there for a very, very long time, honorable member. And with this, Mr. Speaker, I record my support and that of the people of Soufrière Fonseca for this motion presented by the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Castries South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in response to the motion put forward to authorize the borrowing of $20 million for the St. Jude Hospital reconstruction. Mr. Speaker, it is always difficult for one to say that you will not support the completion of a project which you know that the people of St. Lucia and the people of the South in particular are in dire need of its completion. But Mr. Speaker, when you put the entire context in which we are asked to approve this loan, it really begs a number of questions. We need to sit back and reflect on where we are in March 2020. And I listened to the members from Strozel, Saltibus, and Soufrière Fonseca, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say to both of them that there is absolutely no doubt in the minds of the majority of St. Lucians that healthcare is in crisis in St. Lucia. There is no doubt about that. And no matter how much they try to spin, to bob, and to weave, the reality is that healthcare is in crisis. And Mr. Speaker, it is a manufactured crisis. It is a crisis that was brought about by the callousness, the insensitivity, and the inefficiency of members opposite. I will recall, Mr. Speaker, that the member from Soufrière Fonseca was in this house speaking about execute, they will execute together with the member from Castries South East. And I told him, just wait and see who will be executed. In fact, he went so far to even say that on his side are the amateurs in execution. You recall that, members? And I smile because I knew the days will come to haunt them. And the member from Strozel, Saltibus, opened that door. And I'm not going to tell you whether he was protesting outside St. Jude against the United Workers' Party for true or not, because I know the truth, whether he was there. The member from Strozel, Saltibus, I'm talking about. Not you. Not you. I won't tell you if it's true or not. But the member says the Labour Party was not forgiven by the people of St. Lucia for not finishing St. Jude at OKEU, but they will forgive them for not finishing it. Okay? He never said that. But they will forgive them for whatever wrongs they have done, because it has not yet been finished. And the same member speaks of deadlines that were given, and deadlines were given and not met. And the document that was before me, and the member from Miku South just walked out, I wanted to quote him. February the 8th, February the 6th, 2018. Hear what he says about OKEU. I think that the hospital is supposed to be functional, even according to the previous government, almost 3 or 4 years ago. So we are happy that we're able to get the dialysis lab up and running, and we're hoping to get other sections. So I believe by the end of this year, 2018 that is, the hospital should be fully functional. This is the Prime Minister, the member from Miku South, in February the 4th, the 6th, saying by the end of 2018, OKEU will be fully functional. He goes on to speak about health insurance. And he says, so we think that having a universal health care insurance program is the way to go. And so we are working with the different entities with the idea of hopefully by the end of this year, 2018, that we will be able to have a program that we can commence. Just 2. I can give you a lot more, Mr. Speaker. In fact, there's a whole batch of them, of promises and comments made. A whole batch. But the member from Strozel Saltibus is now a politician. So he is pretending that he wants to make excuses for his government. And attack people too, he did. But, Mr. Speaker, I don't think we can deny that St. Jude was not completed. We have been through this before, and the member from Castries North himself gave a very pointed presentation in this house, where he himself spoke of when he was Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, that he intended to finish St. Jude. He said so. And he said he understood what the government and Dr. Kenny Anthony went through, because everyone wanted to finish St. Jude. Who said that? The member for Castries North. He said that he understood. Not a member from Babuno, he would never say such gracious things. But Mr. Speaker, everyone intended to finish the hospital. But the government, this present government, said to the people of St. Lucia that they will immediately open OKEU and that they will finish St. Jude Hospital. But I want to return to my issue of the crisis that's in healthcare. The crisis. Because I have friends in the health sector, Mr. Speaker, and I speak to them often. I have many friends who are doctors. And this morning, Mr. Speaker, I was hoping we would have had this debate, because there were a number of school children here who wanted to hear the debate on this motion, to hear what we were saying about healthcare in this country, because it's a concern for St. Lucians. So we were told the hospitals would have been open, St. Jude would have been completed. But what did this government do? They stopped all works on St. Jude and commissioned 2 audits on St. Jude. And the member from Castries office came in this house and was accusing left, right, and center. They even said people would go to jail for St. Jude. 4 years later, Mr. Speaker, those audits have not been made documents of the House. And when the St. Lucia Labour Party get back into office in the next few months, we will make them documents of the House. They denied that there was a handover report until a talk show host and other persons leaked it. It could not be, Mr. Speaker, that they did not know there was a handover report. It could not be. You never knew one existed.
I am critical of the Labour government.
He said, the member of Cassius office said he never knew there was a handover report. He had every other document, including documents he said were erased on computers about how much was paid to who to investigate him, but he didn't know there was a handover report. That must have been the most ghost report that ever existed. But the report existed, and the report is present, and we can read the report. And the report in detail and prepared by the project manager. And I know he has a copy of it now. And I'm going to say to him, why don't you make the audit reports documents of the House? So St. Lucians can know for the millions of dollars that were spent exactly what the report says. It still has not been presented. But since 2016, when St. Lucians were already dissatisfied with the state of healthcare because they felt their hospital should have been completed and open, the decline has worsened from a government that promised the people of St. Lucia it would have solved all the healthcare problems. And a member from Soufrière Foster Jacques says he doesn't want us to come in here and talk to them about healthcare. You don't want us to come in here to talk about healthcare, but you want all of us to be in this national effort to fight coronavirus. It's a kind of schizophrenic attitude that they have. So you don't want us to talk about healthcare. You don't want us to come in this house and say anything as to how anything should be done, but you want us to be part of your national effort. We will be part, but I'll come to that later on. And the situation worsened. And I was shocked when I heard our Prime Minister, I think it was at the Stratford Town Hall, say to St. Lucians the reason why he was not opening OKEU, and I think I have a clip, Mr. Speaker, and may I take this opportunity to see, Mr. Speaker, we need to enhance the audiovisual capacity in this Parliament, so I could have played the clip for it to be seen, Mr. Speaker, where the Prime Minister is saying the reason why he has not opened OKEU, but I need a screen where it can be shown, where the member from Miku South says he has not opened OKEU, because if you take the people at VH and you bring them to OKEU, it will be the same problems you had at VH that you transfer into OKEU. So he was holding on for a foreign company to be able to come and run OKEU for him. The member from Miku South said that. And the two members from Strozel and Soufrière are defending that. They're defending that. Where you are saying you're not opening in OKEU because you're waiting, you're holding on for a foreign entity to come and run OKEU for you. And meanwhile, people are begging and saying, healthcare is going down the drain. Do something about it. You promised us you would fix the health situation, but you are holding on. And you say to me, the two members from Soufrière and Strozel, you all are proud of what you all have done in healthcare so far, and the people will not punish you all. But I wouldn't say much about that. Then, Mr. Speaker, St. Jude Hospital, I always wondered why it is that a greater effort is not being made to complete St. Jude. And I'm thinking, the member from Cassius South is, and he's like the Minister of Concrete and Steel. Anything to do with construction and big thing is him. So you're not hearing the Minister of Health, but you're hearing him, Minister of Concrete and Steel.
Spell the steel.
Trying to get me in trouble, member from Beaufort South. I will not go down that road. But Mr. Speaker, I heard the member, the Minister of Health, is talking about new site for St. Jude Hospital. They will put a building next to the brewery. And I'm wondering, what is this all about? And then it leaks out that the government has already promised St. Jude Hospital buildings, that site, for medical school. So the member from Cassius office must tell us what the truth is. Is it that this government has, and it has been said by them, and I'm repeating it, that they have made a commitment that St. Jude Hospital will be used as a medical school? So all the story about buildings not good and buildings is that, buildings are that, that's not true. Those were fabricated because the buildings have been promised to somebody for medical school. That's what we learned. Because we're now hearing, the minister is saying, member from Kasui South is, that almost 80% of the buildings will be used. Only 2 buildings, I believe, were broken down, demolished. 90. 2 buildings will be demolished. And an entire St. Jude Hospital will be housed in the present structure that we've been asked to borrow this money for. So this money is in effect. So Mr. Speaker, if the buildings at St. Jude will be used, why do we need this new entire structure? So it's not going to be used for the hospital. So that's the point I am making. So you have not refurbished, you've not completed the project because the buildings are not to be used for a hospital. Not, and all the technical people, I've listened to architects, engineers, they're saying to us the entire St. Jude that is housed in the stadium can be transferred to one of the wings, the east wing I think it is, at St. Jude. No. I heard architects, I heard engineers. I ought not to mention their name in the House, Mr. Speaker, because, no, I mean, that's not the protocol of the House. So, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable.
So, if you can take the entire St. Jude Hospital now that's in the stadium and move it to one of the buildings, why didn't you do so? Why didn't you do it? Because you had decided that the buildings will not be used for a hospital and it's going to be used for a medical school. So you're holding on at OKEU when people are dying, and you promised St. Jude for medical school when people are dying, and the members from Soufre and Strozel are saying the people of St. Lucia will not punish us for that. Mr. Speaker, let us move on, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, I have longed to hear either the member from Kasui South East or the Minister of Health come and present what is the health plan that this government has. You won in June 2016. It is March 2020, almost 4 years later, and no St. Lucian can tell you they know definitively what this government is going to do as it relates to healthcare. We've been told we're going to get health insurance by the end of 2018. We've not received it. We were told that OKE would be fully functional by the end of 2018. It has not happened. We were told that St. Jude's will build a new St. Jude next to the brewery. That has not happened, Mr. Speaker. But meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, I can find the exact quote, Mr. Speaker, to play where it was said by Honorable Mary Isaac, the Minister of Health. See if you can find one of those things. So, Mr. Speaker, but you know what has happened since then? And it's painful. It's really painful. I know of persons in my constituency, what they went through because of the healthcare crisis in this country. Now, if truth be told, Mr. Speaker, the member for Kasui Central can tell you when she became Minister of Health in 1997 that she too faced a crisis. And we're on different sides now and we probably won't agree. But I remember how hard she worked, Mr. Speaker, to try to get VH back up to a certain level to function. I benefited from that, Mr. Speaker. but let's move on, Mr. Speaker. But the point I'm making, Mr. Speaker, is that people are suffering because of the healthcare crisis. I know a young man that was beaten. The night he was taken to accident emergency, he could not do an x-ray. Was sent home and told to come back next day. He came back next day, collapsed at the entrance to the x-ray room, and he died. He'd been bleeding from the night before. And if he had done an x-ray, they probably would have seen that and he could have been attended to. I know an old lady who had a stroke was in ICU, but they have limited beds, decreased beds in ICU. And she had to be moved, put on the ward, and she got a stroke the next day again and died. If she was still in ICU on the machine, she would not have gotten it. I can go on and give you examples, personal situations I've had to relate to. And I'm not saying people before did not have complications in other medical facilities, but there have been an acceleration of those things in the last 3 to 4 years, and it's because of the callousness of members on the other side that they have not completed OKAU and St. Jude Hospital. And the members from Strozel and Soufre says, all of that can happen, but the people will not punish us. That's what they're thinking, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let's go on, Mr. Speaker. So we ask to support a loan for a new structure. I don't know. Be careful what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker. Did I say anything out of order? No? Okay, I shall proceed. But you can correct me if Mr. Speaker, this new structure, I wanted to get, Mr. Speaker, the exact words of the Prime Minister in introducing this motion. And maybe the member from Kasri South East, as the line minister, member from Kasri South East. Maybe the member from Kasri South East can assist me. What did I hear the Prime Minister say? That they gave a contract to Fresh Start to start the steel frame structure. And then I heard that the Taiwanese firm is now the main contractor. And did they start off as a subcontractor or did they start off as a contractor? Because if you gave Fresh Start a contract to start a project, how is it now Fresh Start is now demoted to subcontractor and the Taiwanese contractor is now main contractor? I'm not understanding the dynamics now. I'm not involved in that level of contract negotiations, but it baffles me. You give somebody a contract without any tendering. Now you have 3 years to award that contract, so there's no need to do any direct purchase. But then the company who gave it is now the subcontractor, and another company is now the main contractor. And I thought I heard the Prime Minister say, they still don't know what the final cost is. Which means we may very well come back to this house to borrow more money to finish the project. Because I'm sure I heard the member from Miku South, and I know the member from Kasri's office will speak. Why is it that there is no cost? Why have you started a project and you're working according to the member from Kasri's office 3 shifts a day? I think you said that somewhere. You're working expeditiously to finish it. And although they tell you they'll finish next year, you believe they might even finish this year or whatever. But you don't even know the cost of what you're doing. How do you start a project? How do you start a project?
All the baboon cultists are gone.
How do you start a project? Accelerated construction program. And then you're saying you don't even know how much it would cost. Mr. Speaker, I need the member from Kasri's office. And like I said, I know he's fully qualified as a Minister of Concrete and Steel to explain that one to us.
60,000 to supply bamboo.
But you know, the other thing that really struck me, Mr. Speaker,
The forestry minister
is that the facility at St. Jude, the one that we've been asked to borrow $20 million to complete, is a downgraded facility to what was being built at the St. Jude site. It's a
Honorable members, Member for Kasri South is on the floor.
So that's the facility we've been asked to borrow the money for. Is a downgraded facility from what was previously planned for the St. Jude Hospital. Okay, if I am misleading the House, the member will correct me. I heard the member says it is a category 4 or something like that. The member explained, as far as I knew, a national hospital was being built at St. Jude. The member, I think he's going senile, Mr. Speaker, but let's move on because my time is running. So he says it's not been downgraded. It's not been downgraded, Mr. Speaker. But again, if we had audiovisual, I would have played the clip again for you, Mr. Speaker. You know, the best testament of the insanity of this government and healthcare? A level 4 facility. That's what he said it's going to be now. A level 4 facility. That's not what it always was. But let's move on, Mr. Speaker. Let me give you the finest example of the insanity of this government. At St. Jude, across the road, you had a garbage disposal site. For many years. For many years. Nobody on this side, the government side, ever thought you have a hospital and you should not have a garbage disposal site opposite it. But someone wants to have a horse race in St. Lucia. And his horses that are about 2 miles away, he says the garbage disposal site is too close to his horses. Shut it down. And this government shuts it down. Explain that to me. There was a hospital right there. There is a hospital right there. The garbage disposal site is across the road. And it is not a hindrance to the sick people. But somebody wants to have a horse race 2 miles away, or 1.5 miles if you want to correct me. A mile. And he says it's too close, the dump is too close to his horses, close it down. And this government closes it down. And tell me, is that not insensitive? And the members from Srozelle and Soufrière will say that the people will not punish them for that kind of policy. The member from Srozelle said that the people will not punish them for not delivering on health care. He never said that.
What did you say?
So, Mr. Speaker,
Let him say what he said.
you want
I'm interested.
on a point of order? So, Mr. Speaker, the context of this, Mr. Speaker, is one of insensitive and callousness on the part of this government. But, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable members, the crosstalk is getting a little too loud. Honorable member, Soufrière, Leader of the Opposition.
now, Mr. Speaker, all of what I have explained is of the crisis that's now in the healthcare system in St. Lucia. We've gone downhill at a rapid pace. And in all of that, we have coronavirus. And I want to say a few words on the coronavirus, Mr. Speaker. I want to say a few words. Mr. Speaker, I must tell you that I am disappointed with how this matter has been handled. I am disappointed, Mr. Speaker. And I think, Mr. Speaker, my disappointment is not necessarily an expression of criticism of the government, because I believe St. Lucians want us at a time like this to be able to show some kind of togetherness, a national, collective will to fight the coronavirus. And I am sure, like my colleague from Denry North, that we have St. Lucian professionals that can produce world-class plans of how we should deal with the coronavirus. I have friends who are among those medical practitioners, those medical planners, and I have a lot of faith and confidence in them, like many other people. But, Mr. Speaker, my problem is the deficiencies in policy, Mr. Speaker, because the professionals are not the ones who drive this fight against the coronavirus. This has to be driven by the policy makers, Mr. Speaker. The technical people will provide all the world-class plans that the member from Denry North spoke about. But somebody has to drive it and somebody has to push it, and these have to be the policy makers. And I listened to the member this morning, Mr. Speaker, and it's quite ironic, Mr. Speaker, I will tell you this morning. It was almost comical to me, because in getting the member, the Minister of Health, to speak in this chamber, she was introduced under a standing order that speaks of strangers in the house. The right way to have done it was for a motion to be moved asking that the minister to address the House of Assembly. Instead, 83-1, which says we're inviting a stranger to come to speak to us, is probably a Freudian action, Mr. Speaker, because she's a stranger to many solutions. She's a stranger to many solutions. But, Mr. Speaker, I think, Mr. Speaker, that we are a bit late in this matter. And I want to share with you where my disappointment is and how I think some of those matters can be addressed, Mr. Speaker. I am wondering, on January 30th, the Director General of WHO announced that coronavirus, January 30th, and the Minister repeated it this morning, is a public health emergency of international concern, January 30th. Shortly after, I heard the Prime Minister was going on vacation for a few days. And I asked myself, why? Why? I'm not saying he should not have a vacation, but the WHO has just announced this is a public health emergency of international concern. I did not expect your highest decision maker to then decide to go on vacation. But I'm sure they were very capable people, and maybe the acting was probably even more capable, as you said. Yeah, I'm glad you said you're more capable, Mr. Speaker. But we did not activate NIMAC until February 20th. Mr. Speaker, can I proceed? Okay, they are capable people. So it was declared on January 30th by WHO, a public health emergency of international concern. We activate NIMAC on February 28th. We took 28 days to activate NIMAC. Is it because we did not believe that it would become something so important we'd have to battle against it? And I remember the media asked me questions, and I asked, where is our Prime Minister? Where is he? And some of the supporters messaged me and said to me, you know, what are you talking about? It's all in China. They have the virus. We don't have no direct flights from China. And I was a little reluctant to go on Facebook and defend, because I didn't want, Mr. Speaker, to make this an issue beyond. I just wanted to make a simple point. When you activate NIMAC, in a sense, you are declaring war. It's like your war council. And when you activate NIMAC, you're ready for combat. And I expect to feel in St. Lucia, we are ready for combat. That's what it is. You declare war. It's not business as usual. You've activated NIMAC. And I want to ask members opposite, who is the incident commander for the fight against coronavirus? Can it be announced to the country so we know who is the person that is the incident commander? Can you tell us where is the incident command center for the fight against the coronavirus? This is a war. And when I speak to professionals overseas and in St. Lucia, the things they tell me that can happen if we are not sufficiently ready says we need to have an incident command center established at the soonest. We need to have an incident commander. Tell us who that person is. Tell us. We in St. Lucia need to know that more than washing our hands, and I must applaud the member from Beaufort North. He did a little video which I wanted to share with all parliamentarians in case you have the numbers. Wash your hands and wash your hands, and showing people how to wash their hands for his constituency.
They don't anything from Beaufort.
Well, it's a national effort.
They don't like Beaufort.
And as a parliamentarian, he's showing people how they should wash their hands. It's very welcome.
They don't like Beaufort now.
We need to know, beyond just telling people to wash their hands,
From the country,
who in St. Lucia is leading the fight against this virus, because we've declared war against the coronavirus.
I'm a country boy.
But more than that, Mr. Speaker, there are people in my constituency who come to me and ask me questions, and I cannot answer. So if, for example, a child in a school tests positive for coronavirus, what happens next? Maybe you know on this side. We don't know on this side. What happens next? Is the school immediately closed indefinitely? Is the school closed and a cleanup crew sent in to disinfect the whole school? Will every child now be told to self-isolate at home and do not come out on the streets? Tell the people of St. Lucia what are the policy statements on those matters. Let me tell you another important one, Mr. Speaker. In all of this, if we identify an incident commander, that person is the first person we must protect the most. And you know who is next in line? The people in the front line, then the Prime Minister. Maybe, do you have special protocols in place to ensure that the Prime Minister never gets affected? Because decision making will be critical. Decision making will be absolutely critical. And you have to assure St. Lucians that you have in place the policy framework to make sure that the incident commander, the incident command center are totally and fully protected. That the Prime Minister as the head of cabinet and cabinet ministers are there's a plan in place to make sure they are not affected, because they are going to make the most critical decisions to fight the virus on a day-to-day, well, not day-to-day basis, but in terms of what happens next. If you have to come to Parliament to pass special legislation, and there is no Parliament because half of Parliament is sick, what happens? Who's thinking of all those things? Maybe you all have, but we don't know. I don't know. I was glad, Mr. Speaker, when I came in, you had some hand sanitizer, and if you have any extra bottles, please, I would love to have one to take with me and to put in my office tomorrow when I have constituency day, Mr. Speaker. Even that, if we are parliamentarians and we may be called in here to sit and pass special legislation, maybe when we have constituency day tomorrow, maybe we should have something in place to make sure that there is no spread of infection there and protect your parliamentarians for decision making. The frontline staff will be treating people what has been done to them to make sure they do not get infected. Imagine if all your nurses and doctors get infected. It was announced yesterday that the head of the New York Airport Authority got infected. He had been in the front line for the last 2 weeks dealing with this issue. And he's now infected. Or affected, whichever, yeah? Mr. Speaker, can you tell us something about that? I wanted to hear the minister say those things this morning. Now, I heard, Mr. Speaker, that we're going to move VH to OKEU, and VH will now be a respiratory hospital. It means now you're running 2 hospitals. We don't have enough staff to run 1 VH. How are we going to run 2? So there is a call. No. Let me proceed. So there's a call for people to come and offer their services, whatnot. It's more than just a call. It's more than just a call. And we are told that the elderly is probably the most vulnerable. We have a home care program. Have we called in all those people and given them special training and given them special equipment or whatever to make sure that the elderly they attend to cannot be infected? There's so much in terms of policy. Let me tell you, I hear a lot of people talk about testing, test. Probably our biggest concern is not tests, but the ventilators that the minister spoke about this morning. How many ventilators are there in St. Lucia? I heard we're trying to get a couple more. But if we have 9 ventilators in St. Lucia, and there are 15 people waiting to ventilate, who gets priority? Is there a policy that says it? If a minister walks in and he needs to be ventilated, are you going to take somebody off and put him because he's a parliamentarian, a legislator, and a member of cabinet? Is there a policy that says who gets priority to be ventilated? Because we're in a crisis. We have activated NIMAC. We are in a war situation. Do we feel that this government is leading St. Lucia in a major battle against this coronavirus? I don't feel it. I don't feel it. And I do not want to be critical and to say, oh, government this and government that. Genuine concerns. What if there is an outbreak in the Treasury, Accountant General Chambers? Who is going to pay salaries at the end of the month? Have we thought of that? And what measures we have in place? What measures do we have in place? So I think, Mr. Speaker, this thing is a lot bigger than we're making it out to be. And maybe there are answers on the other side. Maybe there are. But it's not been shared with the public as it's not been shared with us. And you know what happens in situations like this? Prime Minister Mia